some of the products, and then how do you get to this? How do you get to these oils from a plant? Because there is a lot of agricultural science and processing technology that comes into play. There are PhD scientists that are working at these cannabis companies in labs that are very sophisticated, like biopharmaceutical industry, using pretty sophisticated techniques to be able to extract out these compounds and get them into the formulation where you can ingest them. So cultivation, hemp is basically less than 0.3% THC. That's probably not the right way to look at it, but unfortunately that's the way the government has labeled it. So anything less than 0.3% THC is automatically hemp. Anything above it, it's a cannabis plant, and you cannot legally ship CBD products that are above 0.3% THC across state lines. So what we're talking about, Wellness Bioscience, is purely hemp CBD-based products, less than 0.3% THC. And the science to grow these plants is quite sophisticated. They are artisan plants. They can take millions of dollars in facilities to grow this. As easy as you can grow it outside, they take a lot. They almost purify the soil, so they uptake a lot of heavy metals and toxins and pesticides. So it is very important that these plants are tested every step of the way, and we're not ingesting the heavy metals and pesticides and everything else that is there in the soil when these plants are being grown. So once these plants are grown, the buds are cultivated. They're taken off the cannabis or hemp plant, and then they have to go over to a processing type of facility. Next slide. And one thing that is very important is quality and safety matters. If we are talking to patients about it, we as physicians, me and Dr. Patel, would not come near it unless we knew. The herbal industry is a perfect example. There is no regulation. 50% of the turmeric products are filler. You don't have any regulation. The FDA is now coming in after 15 years. They're going to be in a lot faster in the CBD industry, and they are entering with strict regulations. So the companies that are progressive are going to use a GMP FDA certified type facility for extraction. Those are clean rooms. They're going to use ethanol and supercritical CO2 and butane to basically strip the plant material out and get the cannabinoids and terpenes. Now, through this process, as you get to a more pure and purer form through distillation and chromatography, you lose all those terpenes. By the time you get to the end, which is an active pharmaceutical grade ingredient like pure CBD, you're not going to have all those other components to the plant. And those other components have physiologic benefits. It's very different to take a full spectrum product with all the terpenes and just CBD isolate. But there is a role for CBD isolate when you're looking at it from the sleep oil we have. We add the terpene to it in the end because it is a pure product. We know there's nothing else in it. We've all third-party tested it. This is where you are beginning to see all these companies out there. If you go and test them, not all of them have the right quantities of CBD and THC. A lot of them have heavy metals. You would really need, and I would tell you to scrutinize any products patients or anyone uses, because much of it is not what the label says. And it is very important to understand that this takes a lot of capital and sophisticated operating procedures to be able to make these products. And third-party independent lab testing with stringent guidelines is very important, and you should be able to access that any batch, anytime. It is important because you're ingesting these compounds. Next slide. So what are the compounds? What are the products and the SKU we have? And these are always changing. We research these in detail, and as we get more information, we will go back to the processing companies and kind of look at the data and decide what would be of value. Well, the energy oil is a CBD isolate. It has gone through the cultivation and the stringent extraction and refinement process. It is third-party tested. It is tested all the way through by the company as well. It has B1, B2, and you look in the end, that limonene, that's a terpene, that's more for focus. We go back to that terpene slide, it shows you, we've added that back in because strains that are heavy in limonene can make you feel more awake and energetic. You're not going to take that in a sleep in oil, but you would take it in an energy form of CBD. And everyone's different. We tell people start low and work your way up. Everyone's underlying body is different, so they react differently to this. Next slide. Sleep oil, same thing. It's a CBD isolate. It has some melatonin in it, and it works. I use this maybe once in a week if I need it. You put in some tea or you put it under your tongue, gives you good REM sleep. There's no sedation in the morning. It's mild, and I know, and I can definitely tell when I've taken it and when I haven't. And I don't need it. I have pretty good sleep hygiene, but it works. And it's very mild and very subtle, and which is what you want. You don't want something you need a higher and higher dose of. You don't want something that's going to give you night terrors and you're going to sleepwalk like Ambien. You don't want something where you need a higher and higher dose. You want something very mild, and then you want to use it with sleep hygiene and behavioral therapy, so you may not need to go to pharmaceutical grade medicines. Next slide. So relief balm. These balms, they work. You can put it, you're getting a migraine, rub it on your temple. You will see an analgesic effect and anti-inflammatory effect. Tight muscles, you'll feel it. And I'll tell you, the balms in the States that have the THC, they work great too, because there's a synergistic effect. But I would urge you to try this. The balms do work, and there is a lot of topical benefit. Next slide. The balance pills, these are more full spectrum. They will have more of the terpene profile. The extraction process doesn't go all the way down to the complete isolate. They are great for building up in the system and helping with anxiety and pain relief. They can be taken daily. Next slide. The meter dose inhaler, this is an extremely unique product. I don't think there's any product like this in the country, much less the world. You will see one or two other inhaler-based products, but we're not really sure on the quality. The reason the inhaler is such a big deal is bioavailability and route of administration. When you ingest cannabinoids, CBD, THC, these are fat-based compounds. They do not absorb well at all. That is why you use nanoparticle and emulsification, because we are a water-based body, and to absorb these compounds, you may absorb 15% of what you take, and majority of that is broken down by the liver, because everything that comes from your gut that's absorbed all goes to your liver first. So the amount that's really getting into the blood to hit the receptors in the brain is small from when you ingest it. That's why dosing varies so much for an individual. If you can get this into the alveoli, which are the sacs in the distal parts of the lung, that is where gas exchange occurs. There is no first pass metabolism. It does not go to the liver. It goes straight up to the systemic circulation and to the brain. That is why when you ingest, if you get the right inhaler with the right patented formulation, it has to be between 1 and 4 microns, these particles, to get deep enough into the lung. They will get in the bloodstream and you'll feel it within a minute to 2 minutes. And it allows you a much more efficient utilization of that product. And most importantly, it's safe and the quality's there. We've gone through it with this company who has spent years finalizing this product. The equipment is through an FDA licensed manufacturer called Coster, which makes it for the pharmaceutical industry. The pharmaceutical industry has partnered with this company, and they actually have supplied the equipment to patent the technology to put the CBD isolate into this inhaler. And you need a propellant. A propellant is what pushes this into the lungs, and that propellant is the same one that asthma inhalers use. So we're not adding anything to this but the CBD isolate, which is sourced at a high-level cultivation farm and at an ISO lab-based facility where they are processing this. That means they have GMP type of certification. Even though the FDA is not requiring this, progressive companies will use these standards because they know it's coming. And the inhaler works because of this bioavailability. And because it works immediately, people see the difference. And I would encourage you to have people try it. And especially if you have anxiety, it will work for anxiety. If we have pain, predominantly, it will help for the pain. It varies based on what is deficient in the body and what is the formulation that you're taking. Next slide. So, overall, that is a lot of information, but understand that, we're really at the cusp of what's happening. And as this is deregulated, you will see very well done clinical trials in the major universities with these compounds, including THC, and you will then see the pharmaceutical industry move into the space, which is good or bad, but we do need to progress these compounds to a point where we're driving some value to the public, because right now there's a whole host of issues and ailments that we just don't have good medicines for. And a lot of the medicines that we have extreme amounts of addictive potential, overdose potential, and we've all seen it for the last 10 years. So there is a role for this, and we've just got to continue to educate and discuss this amongst people and physicians and understand, how do we talk to patients about this?